Superman has always been the blueprint, the measuring stick for superpowered beings to be compared to. The first question when a new powerful character shows up on the scene is always, could he beat Goku though? You know the reason they don't ask if he could beat Superman? Because it's already a foregone conclusion. The question answers itself. Of course not. While Superman throughout the years have varied in strength, there is always one constant. They are the end-all be-all when it comes to power in their own universe. David Corenswet's Superman is no exception. Before the film even released, we were told this time after time. James Gunn calls this Superman the most powerful metahuman of all time, and David Corenswet calls him the most powerful superhero in the universe. But being the strongest doesn't answer the question, how powerful is Superman? So by the time the film begins, we already know a good bit of what Superman is capable of. In the prequel crypto-focused comic book, we see him use X-ray and heat vision, and he spends time in space playing fetch, with Krypto using asteroids. In the prequel novel, Superman spends his first days in Metropolis really getting into crime fighting. He tears a titanium Luthor Corp tank in half, and even endures a fully charged blast from its laser cannon. After witnessing this, Lex Luthor decides he needs to take down this new metahuman no matter the cost. And just for clarity, in the DCU, metahuman is essentially a synonym for superhuman. Anyone with superhuman abilities from Green Lantern to Hawkgirl to Mr. Terrific and even Superman are all considered to be metahumans. So, Lex deciding he needs to rid his city of Superman, he begins to work on Metallo, one of Superman's most iconic comic book foes. Metallo went through rigorous R&D. He was able to endure gunfire lasers, battering rams, and massive shockwaves without so much as a scratch on him. After seeing it in action, Luthor considered Metallo to be indestructible. Metallo was initially powered by an advanced AI, but Luthor was not satisfied with that, so instead he acquired the brain of the greatest assassin alive, John Corbin, to operate the machine. But these changes weren't enough for Metallo to defeat the Man of Steel, so Lex upgraded the cyborg with kryptonite. At this time, Lex didn't know that kryptonite could harm Superman. He chose to use it to upgrade Metallo because he believed that this new power source would simply make Metallo stronger than Superman. With this upgrade, Metallo was able to easily handle the combined might of Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, and Green Lantern, or the Justice Gang as they are known in this universe. Wait a second. Green Lantern? Haven't we seen them in the DCU before? Okay, let's wait a bit to discuss that. Metallo, with his kryptonite-enhanced form, is defeated by Superman and the other heroes who team up to form a typhoon that takes down the cyborg. 3 years pass, and then we get to the beginning of Superman. During the opening of the film, text appears on screen, giving us a small summary of the universe and Superman's origins. In this summary, he's referred to as the most powerful metahuman of all time, but shortly after this, he plummets into the Antarctic after just being defeated by Ultraman. It's also blatantly stated that this was the first time Superman ever lost a fight, and that Superman was at full strength. Krypto takes Superman back to the fortress, where he is healed to roughly 80% before flying off to battle again, where he is soundly defeated once more. We find out later in the film that Ultraman is a clone of Superman that Lex actually considers to be stronger than Clark. Not only that, but Ultraman is fed fight moves by Lex that are perfectly designed to counter Superman at every turn. Later in the film, once Superman is able to sever the communications between Lex and Ultraman, the fight is much more fair, and Superman overpowers his doppelganger and sends him flying into a black hole. A black hole? Were they fighting in the outer reaches of space? No. Actually, it's way crazier than that. Lex Luthor was able to create the Big Bang and form a pocket dimension that he could travel in and out of using portals. But let's not slide right past that. Yes, Lex recreated the Big Bang, the universe-spawning event that set all of reality into motion. Since it's blatantly referred to as a recreation of the Big Bang, I think it's safe to say that this pocket dimension is infinitely expanding just like our own. One could argue that if Lex was really hell-bent on killing Superman, then why not entrap him in your Big Banginator and then set it off? If he didn't do that, did he think that Superman could endure the Big Bang? No, I don't think so. Lex does eventually imprison Superman in this pocket dimension, but uses Metamorpho to create kryptonite that keeps Superman in check. While in prison, he is extremely weakened by the kryptonite to the point where he can barely breathe, let alone move. To escape, he convinces Metamorpho to help him, so Metamorpho creates a small sun in his hands to help Superman recover, but that is a story for another day. During his prison escape, Superman is caught in a river of antiprotons. And for anyone confused on what an antiproton is the antiparticle of the proton. Antiprotons are stable, but they are typically short-lived, since any collision with a proton will cause both particles to be annihilated in a burst of energy. This burst of energy is incredible. 1.1 kilograms of antimatter is enough to equal the destructive capabilities of the world's most powerful nuclear bomb, the SAR bomb. Superman was, at points, almost entirely submerged into the river of antimatter that Mr. Terrific states would annihilate him should he come in contact with it. Not only was Superman submerged in this river of antimatter, but he was for an extended period of time. However, this is not really any indication of durability or strength, but rather a really unique and frankly overpowered resistance to antimatter, or in this case, antiprotons if we want to be very specific. Since Superman is made of matter, he should have been instantly destroyed when the antimatter comes into contact with him, but that's not what happens. Somehow, Superman is able to resist antimatter from destroying the matter that he is made of. So if antimatter is ever weaponized against him later, he would simply shrug it off as a gentle breeze. This river of antiprotons was being dragged into the black hole that we referenced earlier. Superman used his powerful breath to blow hard and fast enough to propel himself out of the black hole just in time to save Baby Joey, Krypto, and Metamorpho. While he never crossed the event horizon of the black hole, which would be needed to give Superman faster than light speeds just blatantly, he was very close, and I've only seen the movie one time at this point, but I'd guess that this would put him at minimum around relativistic speeds, which means near light speed, just based off of that feat alone. And just so everybody has this in their heads, Superman was weakened during this time. There were moments throughout the film where Superman was flying well below this speed, like when he was fighting off the Engineer and Ultraman simultaneously, but he was also weakened during that fight as well, as the Engineer had laced his lungs and basically his entire body with nanites that were about to kill him. I'd also like to mention that Superman, being the top metahuman, would put him above his cousin Kara, who frequents planets circling red stars so that she can party and get drunk. She shows up drunk to the Fortress of Solitude towards the end of the film, meaning that she had to be traveling at massively faster than light speeds to arrive back on Earth while still intoxicated, assuming she didn't use any alternate forms of travel. But if you watch the movie, it's pretty clear that she crash landed while flying into the fortress. So just for reference, the closest red star to Earth is Proxima Centauri, which is a red dwarf star and part of the Alpha Centauri star system. It's located approximately 4.2 light years away from our solar system. So assuming she came from there, obviously she had to be flying way faster than the speed of light to get back to Earth before becoming sober. I think it's also worth mentioning that she was probably weakened by the red sun and was still able to fly that fast. Again, assuming she didn't use any alternate forms of travel. I think it's also worth mentioning that Superman dodges heat vision in this film. Now, heat vision is not necessarily always a light beam, as it is blatantly stated in the DC Extended Universe, but we do get multiple statements from James Gunn as well as David Corenswet saying that Superman fires laser beams from his eyes. Not to mention that in the universe itself, Clark Kent, aka Superman, writes an article stating that they shoot lasers. So those would be light speed attacks as well. And I'd also like to point out that Superman is the top meta. He should be above the likes of Green Lanterns, who patrol sectors that can contain entire galaxies. They have to move at faster than light speeds to get from one planet to the next. So Superman, I think, realistically should have pretty consistent, massively faster than light speed scaling. Okay, so now I think it's time we delve into this planet busting argument, because obviously it involves Green Lanterns. So during the events of Blue Beetle, we see a Green Lantern redirect the Scarab, and this redirection immediately puts it on the path of a planet and causes it to crash into this planetary body, destroying it. This level of destruction pushes the feat beyond just planetary, putting it in the range of small star levels of destructive capacity. Now, Blue Beetle is a canon story within the DCU. Director of Blue Beetle, Angel Soto, has said this. James Gunn has confirmed this multiple times, and there are even statements flat out saying it's not part of the DC extended universe either. It's like the first step into the DCU, even though James Gunn considers Superman to be the real first DCU film. Blue Beetle is the first DCU character, and the upcoming series is going to continue the story from the first movie. Blue Beetle is the first step into the DCU, despite any visual inconsistencies that may exist. Love it or hate it, Blue Beetle is a DCU film. With that in mind, Guy Gardner isn't just some random Green Lantern. James Gunn has said Guy is the last Lantern the average person would ask for help, but the first Lantern a Guardian of the Universe would request for an unsavory mission, obviously putting Guy in a very high status within the Green Lantern Corps. He's undoubtedly powerful, likely stronger than the random Green Lantern who redirected a small star-destroying projectile. However, there is a bit of an issue. In one of his many interviews, James Gunn said he didn't want a Superman who could punch planets, so they made him a little less powerful. Less powerful here implying that he's not strong enough to destroy a planet with his punches. But we also know he is the most powerful metahuman of all time. Stronger than Blue Beetle, stronger than any Green Lantern. So how do we make sense of this? Well, I think we should keep Gunn's intentions in mind. He could simply be retconning that moment in Blue Beetle, but he could have also just not considered that when he made the statement. Ultimately, I go back to an interview that Zack Snyder had with Total Film magazine when he said, quote, "It's amazing what Superman is capable of, but Henry's is a slightly more down-to-earth version of the character. I don't think he can hold up a continent." But in Man of Steel, Superman displays feats of strength while he's weakened that dwarf the strength that it would take to simply hold a continent up. Zack intended for Superman to be weaker, but in the events of the film, made Superman much more powerful than the limitations they intended to impose on him. Zack's Superman wasn't supposed to be strong enough to lift continents, but he could. James Gunn's Superman isn't supposed to be able to shatter planets, but I'm sorry, based on the scaling, he absolutely can. Finally, the Justice Gang are all able to fight off, quote-unquote, a dimensional imp in the background of one scene. This is so commonplace that Superman isn't even concerned at all and knows that they can handle this battle. If it's a fifth dimensional imp like Mr. Mixie, then we're getting into insane comic book levels of power, and we know that these dimensional imps exist, as Batmite was directly referenced during Peacemaker. But overall, this Superman is incredibly strong, despite Gunn's intentions to tone him down a bit. I think from here, Superman can only go up. He's the strongest metahuman there is. Any feat performed or accomplished by any other hero or villain considered to be a metahuman will only upscale Superman from here. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you think of the scaling down in the comments. I'd really like to see what you have to say. If you're interested in my thoughts on the movie as a whole, please check out the DCU Experience. It is a live podcast that we do every single week with myself, Crisis, True, and of course, Nick. You can find that in the live tab or the podcast tab on the Key Issues homepage. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Remember, like and subscribe. It does really help us out. And remember the motto, it's Superman over everything. And I'll see you guys next time.